I texted the number and got a reply fast. He asked for a deposit before viewing. I refused. He agreed to meet like adults and send an address. I've been grinding through rental listings for weeks, getting ghosted, getting already rented replies, getting shady Cash App requests. So when he dropped the deposit thing, I felt like I'd finally found a normal one. I still texted my friend the address and told her to call me if I didn't check in. I remember rolling my eyes at myself while I did it, like I was being dramatic, like the world isn't full of men who take viewing as an invitation. I left my apartment with my keys threaded between my fingers, not because I thought I'd use them, just because it makes you feel less soft. I pulled up and the place looked fine from the curb. Trim yard, porch light on, curtains drawn. No cars in the driveway, which should have been my first little red flag. He opened the door smiling, like we'd done this before. Not like, nice to meet you, but like, finally. He stepped aside, and I walked in because I didn't want to stand there clutching my phone like a kid. The air hit me with lemon cleaner over something stale, the kind of smell that's trying to erase a smell. He didn't ask my name. He didn't offer a handshake. He just started walking and talking, and I followed, because that's what you do when you're alone in someone else's house, and you're trying to keep the temperature low. He walked me through the house and kept touching my elbow to steer me. Light pressure, constant. If I paused by a window, his hand landed and guided me forward. If I drifted toward the hallway, he nudged me back toward the living room. I kept stepping away. He kept closing the gap. It wasn't flirty. It felt like handling. I started doing that thing where you laugh at nothing, just to buy a second, just to keep the vibe from snapping. He asked where I worked. He asked what hours I kept. He asked if I had family nearby. Normal questions on paper, but he asked them like he was filling out a form he wasn't showing me. I answered wrong on purpose. I lied without thinking. I said I worked days. I said my brother lived close. I said my dad stopped by all the time. I watched him store the lies anyway. He nodded like the details didn't matter because he'd get the real ones later. He asked what kind of car I drove, like it was casual, like he was just making conversation. I shrugged and said something vague, and he smiled like he'd already seen it. He kept talking about the house while watching my face more than the rooms. The place was too staged, too empty. No mail, no photos, no random clutter, just clean surfaces and a couple cheap frame prints. Even the fridge was empty except for a bottle of water. He opened cabinets like he wanted to prove they were hollow. At one point, he drifted behind me in the hallway, and I felt my back tense because I couldn't see his hands. I caught myself moving toward open spaces, keeping furniture between us, like my body had started planning without asking my brain. When we came back toward the entryway, I glanced at the front door and noticed a second lock I hadn't clocked at first. Not a chain. A fresh sliding bolt, new screws, shiny metal. It looked like somebody installed it yesterday. I felt my shoulders creep up without permission. I asked a stupid question about the water pressure because I needed my voice to do something normal. He stopped at a side table and pulled out a paper like it had been waiting there. He handed me a printed agreement with my name already typed at the top. First and last spelled right. I hadn't told him my last name. I hadn't even said my first out loud. I felt my stomach drop so hard my knees went weak. I stared at it like it was going to change if I stared long enough. The room went sharp around the edges like my brain started zooming in on threats. I asked how he got it. I tried to laugh, try to make it casual, because that's what you do when you're scared and still trying to look sane. He shrugged and said, "Public info," like it was cute that I didn't know how easy it is to dig. Then he tapped the signature line with one finger and held the paper a little higher, blocking part of the room, like he was narrowing my world down to ink. I looked at the address line. It had blanks, but my name was filled in like the important part was me, not the lease. I said I wanted to leave. He moved between me and the exit and started talking about safety and respect like he was doing me a favor. He said he runs things clean. He said people waste his time. He said he doesn't like games. He kept saying meet like adults again, slow, like it meant I had to stay put and finish whatever he thought we'd started. He talked about how he screens tenants because the world is dangerous, and the way he said it made my skin crawl, because he wasn't warning me about danger. He was positioning himself as the safer option. He told me he doesn't let randoms walk out with his address in their phone, like I was the problem for wanting to leave. I tried to step around him, and he mirrored me. He didn't touch me yet. He didn't have to. He used his body like a door and kept his voice calm, which somehow felt meaner. He told me I was overreacting. He told me girls get nervous because they watch too much crime stuff. That one word, girls, made my face go hot. I stopped trying to be polite. I told him to move. He smiled wider like I'd said something cute. I shoved past him. He grabbed my wrist. Fast, firm, thumb digging in like he expected me to freeze. The contact flipped a switch in me. I twisted free and slammed my shoulder into the door until it opened. The bolt scraped. The frame rattled. For a second, I thought it wouldn't give, and I'd be stuck in that hallway with him behind me, explaining respect. Then the latch popped and I was out. I ran to my car and drove off hard enough to spin gravel. I didn't go straight home. I made turns I didn't need, doubled back, watched for headlights that followed my lane changes. I pulled into a grocery lot and sat there shaking, watching people load bags like the world was normal. I called my friend and tried to explain without sounding like I was making it up. I could hear her breathing change on the other end, and it made it real in the worst way. I went home anyway, because where else do you go when you're broke and tired? I locked my door, then checked it again, then stood there with my keys still in my hand like I didn't know where to put them. That night, he texted from a different number. Then another. No greeting, no apology. Just a man's wrapped in fake calm. You left too fast. We didn't finish. Don't be childish. I blocked one and another appeared. I blocked that and another came, like he had a stack of phones on a table and time to kill. I tried putting my phone on Do Not Disturb and still kept checking it, because part of me wanted to see what he'd do next, like watching The Edge of Trap. At one point, he sent just a single word, outside, and I swear my lungs stopped for a second. I didn't even know if he meant outside that house, outside my building, outside my life, but my body took it as a threat anyway. Then he sent a photo of my car parked outside my building. My building, not the house. Taken from across the street. Plate visible. Angle steady. He'd stood there and framed it, patient, like it was normal to do homework on a stranger. My throat tightened and I actually gagged. I walked to the window and stared out at the curb, trying to spot him, trying to spot anyone, and all I saw were parked cars and bare branches and my own reflection. My friend told me to call the cops again. I did, because what the hell else are you supposed to do besides ask the system to work at least once? I called the cops. I tried to say everything in the right order so I wouldn't sound hysterical. I told them he grabbed me when I tried to leave. I told them he already had my full name on a document. I told them he's now sending photos of my car at home from burner numbers. The officer who showed up asked if he'd actually done anything besides texting. He said taking a photo from a public street isn't a crime. He said they could note it and suggested I change my number and be more careful meeting strangers. Like I hadn't just been careful. Like careful fixes a guy who thinks your door is part of his property. After he left, I sat on my couch and stared at my front window because I couldn't tell if the shadow at the curb was a tree or a person. Every time a car slowed for the stop sign, my heart jumped. I kept my lights off and still felt exposed. I slept in little chunks with my phone in my hand, jolting awake to nothing, replaying the way his fingers closed on my wrist. The worst part wasn't even fear. It was how stupid I felt for thinking no deposit meant safe. 2 days later, I found a tiny black camera stuck under my porch railing, pointed at my door. No note, no message, just the lens watching like a pet eye. I drove past the pinned location twice because it didn't look like anything. No sign, just a gate and a dark building behind it. The Craigslist guy told me to knock hard and bring gloves. I should have taken the hint and kept driving, but I needed the cash and I didn't want to admit that a vague pin on a map was enough to scare me off. The gate hung half open like somebody forgot it. I parked on the street anyway, grabbed the gloves out of my trunk, and walked in with my keys jammed between my fingers like that ever does shit. No cars inside. No noise. Just gravel under my shoes and the building squatting there, metal siding, windows painted over, one dead floodlight above a side door. I knock hard. The sound died fast like the walls ate it. A minute passed, and I almost left, and then the door opened a crack and a hand waved me in like we'd already agreed on all of this. I stepped through, and the smell hit oil, old food, and something sour and stale underneath like a mop never got rinsed. One bulb hung from a wire and threw a weak circle of light. Two guys stood by stacked pallets like they were waiting for a delivery. No boxes labeled, no clipboard, no inventory. Just space and darkness. They didn't say my name. They didn't ask if I'd found the place okay. The taller one kept his hoodie up and his hands tucked in front like he was hiding them. The shorter one had new boots and a shaved head, and this board looked like I was late. They walked deeper, and I followed, because I wanted the money, and I kept telling myself I was being paranoid, that every gig looks sketchy until you're on the clock. I kept scanning for exits, for cameras, for forklifts, for a break room, for a fire extinguisher. Anything that said people worked here on purpose. I saw none of it. I tried to pull the conversation back to normal. I asked about pay, how long while we were moving. The shorter one tossed over his shoulder that it was easy and said not to worry so much. The taller one just watched me talk, eyes flat, like he was waiting for a pause so he could step in. I started rehearsing leaving. I started thinking about how fast I could get back to my car and how stupid I'd feel explaining this to anyone if nothing happened. One of them shut the door behind us. Not a slam, just a soft close and a click. My stomach clenched on that click. I pulled my phone to check service and watched it drop to 1 bar like the place swallowed it. I asked where the work was. The taller one stepped right into my space, eyes on my jacket pockets. He didn't answer. He reached in and took my wallet like it belonged to him. I slapped his wrist. Reflex. Stupid. He hit me in the mouth with the back of his hand and split my lip. The pain flashed and I tasted metal. I stumbled and tried to put my hands up, and the shorter guy grabbed my arms and twisted them behind me, so hard my shoulder barked. Plastic zip ties cinched around my wrists. He tightened until my fingers went numb, like he was finishing a knot on a trash bag. I tried to yank away, and he shoved me into a pallet, face first, would scrape my cheek. My knees hit concrete. They didn't rush. That's what fucked me up. They moved like they had time. The taller one fanned through my cards, pulled the cash, then took my ID and stared at it longer than he needed to. He kept it. He didn't even pretend he'd give it back. The shorter one patted me down, hard, checking pockets, waistband, shoes like he expected me to have something taped to me. He dug his fingers under my belt line, and I jerked and he laughed like my discomfort was the point. He took my keys and held them up to the bulb and spun them slow, listening to the jingle like it entertained him. He found my pepper spray and laughed like I brought a squeaky toy to a dogfight, then tossed it across the floor and let it skitter into the dark. I started shouting because that's what my body chose. I yelled at them to take the money and let me go, yelled that my phone was tracking, yelled bullshit I didn't believe. The taller one stepped close and told me to stop moving because it would be easier. He said it like advice, like he was saving me effort. Then he leaned in and sniffed. Actually sniffed, and I wanted to spit in his face, but I didn't because I could already feel how quickly they could turn my teeth into a puddle. They dragged me toward a side room. It had a drain in the middle. I saw dried brown rings around it, like something had gone down there in layers. I saw a mop bucket crusted with stuff that didn't look like mud. The walls had hooks screwed into them, spaced out like someone cared about where things hung. The shorter guy kicked the door shut behind us, and the sound echoed and died. My throat closed. My legs wanted to give up right there. I dropped my weight and kicked backward. My heel caught a shin. Someone cursed. The grip loosened for half a second, and I yanked hard, scraping the zip tie, not against the edge of a doorframe. It didn't snap, but it shifted enough that my hands stopped feeling like they were about to pop. The shorter guy grabbed my jacket, and I twisted out and felt fabric tear. That sound flipped a switch in me. I didn't care about looking stupid anymore. I cared about not ending up on that floor. I ran with my hands tied behind me. I tripped, slammed my shoulder into a shelf, and kept moving because stopping meant getting dragged back. The place wasn't laid out like a normal warehouse. It was chopped up with half walls and weird little rooms, like somebody built a maze out of scraps. I knocked over a plastic bin full of junk, bottles, rags, something that clanked like tools, and the noise chased me. I could hear them behind me now, both of them fast, cursing, not amused anymore. My lungs burned. Blood ran into my mouth, and I swallowed it because I didn't have time to spit. I hit a dead end and spun. The shorter guy was right there, too close. He reached for me, and I rammed my head into his face, more panic than aim, and felt his grip slip. I brought my bound hands down like a hammer on his wrist and heard a sharp pop. He yelped and grabbed himself. The taller guy lunged and caught my elbow, and I twisted hard enough to feel my shoulder scream, and he lost his hold for a second. I bolted past them, blind, chasing the faintest hint of outside light. The entrance bulb showed up again like a shitty lighthouse. The main door was ahead. The taller guy stepped into the light to block it, face twisted, done playing. He grabbed at my wrists and yanked backward, and the zip ties cut like they were sawing into me. I kicked at his knees until he stumbled. I used the stumble to throw myself sideways, slammed my shoulder into the door, and hit it again and again, and the latch finally gave with a scrape that sounded like my own bones. Cold air hit my face. I burst outside and fell on gravel. My knees tore. I got up anyway, half running, half stumbling with my arms stuck behind me. I screamed at the road, waved at nothing, and ran until I saw headlights. I didn't look back because I knew if I looked back I'd slow down. I heard the gate rattle behind me like someone shoved it, and that was enough. A car slowed, and I stepped into the lane like an idiot because I didn't have a better plan. The driver braked hard. I shoved my wrists up to the window so she could see the zip ties, and I kept making noise because silence felt like dying. She didn't get out. Smart. She called 911 on speaker and told me to stay by her door and keep my face visible. I nodded like a kid. I kept watching that gate, waiting for them to appear, waiting for the sound of footsteps on gravel, waiting for a hand on my neck. When the cops arrived, the first thing they did was cut the ties. My hands burned and tingled like they were waking up from sleep. I flexed and almost cried from the sting. I kept spitting blood and pointing back at the building, trying to explain a pinned location like it was a real address. They asked what the guys looked like, and I hated how hard it was to describe them, like my brain refused to hold onto their faces. They went in with flashlights and came back out with different faces. One of them asked for the number I'd been texting. He said it was a burner. He didn't look surprised. I went home with a fat lip, wrists striped purple, and my shoulders screaming every time I moved wrong. I sat in my car for a long time before I could make myself go inside, because my keys didn't feel like mine anymore. In the shower, the water stung my cuts, and the steam pulled that warehouse smell right back into my nose. I scrubbed until my skin went hot. I still felt dirty. I still feel dirty when I think about how calm they were while they took my ID, like they weren't just robbing me, they were keeping me. Later, when I checked the listing, it was gone. The email bounced. The job never existed. I did. I went alone because the ad said curb pickup, and I wanted it done fast. The address led to a duplex with a busted porch light. No dresser sat outside. I sat in my car and stared at the porch like it was going to cough the thing up if I waited. I refreshed the listing twice. Same photo, same free. I should have left. Instead, I got out because I hate wasting a drive, and I told myself they probably dragged it inside, so nobody stole it. I knocked. A man opened the door and stared at my shoes like I'd track mud in his house. He waved me in without stepping back. The air inside felt thick, like old heat trapped in fabric. A TV glowed somewhere. He didn't introduce himself. He just turned and walked, like I was already hired. I hesitated in the doorway, and he flicked his fingers again, impatient. When I stepped in, I heard the deadbolt click behind me. That sound landed hard in my gut, stupid and simple, and I hated myself for noticing it. The dresser sat in the back room, not near the door, not near the porch. He made me walk past a hallway full of trash bags. Not tied neat, just bulging black plastic, wet-looking in spots. Flies bounced off the ceiling light and dropped onto the bags, then crawled back up. The floorboard stuck a little under my steps, like something had spilled and dried wrong. I kept checking over my shoulder because the front room went dim fast, like the house swallowed light. He stopped in the back room and pointed. The dresser looked worse than the photo. Swollen at the base, veneer bubbling, one drawer tilted like a bad tooth. Still, free is free. I grabbed it and it didn't budge, not even a centimeter. The drawers rattled, and then something inside thumped once, heavy and contained, like a weight shifting when you tip a box. I looked at him. He didn't blink. He told me to take the drawers out. I pulled the top drawer. It fought me, then slid open a few inches with a wet squeal. The smell punched out so hard my eyes watered instantly. Not dust, not mildew, rot, wet, sweet rot, the kind that gets in your throat and makes you gag before you decide to. I snapped the drawer shut without meaning to, and the corner caught wrong and cracked. He snapped at me immediately. His voice went sharp and mean, cussing, blaming me, like the crack was my fault for being clumsy and not the fault of whatever the hell was soaking that wood. He stepped close enough that his breath hit my face. Spit shined at the corner of his mouth. He planted himself between me and the hall like it was automatic. I tried to keep it calm and told him I wasn't taking it, but my voice came out thin. He called me a bitch. He said I broke his shit. He said I was going to pay. He reached down, picked up the little splintered corner that broke off, and held it up like evidence. Then he angled his body and nudged the hallway door partly shut with his heel, slow, like he wanted the house to swallow the sound. I heard the latch catch. I tried to sidestep him. He shoved me back into the room with one hand to my chest. Not a punch, a move, controlled. I stumbled and my calf hit the dresser and the wood felt damp through my jeans. He pointed at it again, kept talking at me, kept ordering me to pull the drawers like if I kept working I'd forget where the exit was. He kept glancing at the front like he was listening for a car outside, and that scared me more than the yelling, like he was timing this. My stomach tightened and my brain started firing off details I hated. My phone was in my car. I hadn't told anyone this address. The porch light was dead. The street outside was quiet. I squeezed my keys in my fist until the teeth bit my palm. He watched my hands, then my face, then the door like he was measuring how much fight I had. He stepped closer and I stepped back again, and the back of my knees hit the dresser. I glanced down and finally saw the floor under it. Dried stains, dark and layered, like repeated drips. Not one spill, a pattern. I looked at the baseboard behind it and saw scratch marks low on the paint, parallel lines like something had clawed at the wall, trying to wedge under it. I swallowed, and the rot smell crawled deeper into my mouth. I tried breathing through my sleeve, and it didn't help. Another thump came from inside the dresser, smaller than the first, like a knuckle tap from the other side of a board. My skin went cold, and my brain did this awful little flip where it tried to name what could make that sound, and every answer was worse. He saw me looking, and his face tightened like I caught him. He leaned in and told me I wasn't leaving until I fixed what I broke, and he said it like he'd already decided what fixed meant. His hand came up like he might grab my wrist. I didn't wait to find out. I didn't argue. I didn't bargain. I just moved. I faked a half step toward the dresser like I was going to pull another drawer, then swung left hard, aiming for the narrow gap by the doorway. He lunged and caught my sleeve. Fabrice Tora. He tried to hook his fingers into my arm, and I felt his nails scrape skin. I yanked free and slammed my shoulder into him. He grunted and stumbled half a step, surprised more than hurt, and that half step was everything. I sprinted down the hall. Trash bags slapped my hips. Flies hit my forehead, and I didn't stop to wipe them off. The front room blurred. I hit the door, jerked it open, and the cold outside air hit my lungs like a slap. I took the porch steps 2 at a time. My foot landed wrong, and my ankle rolled, pain flashing hot, but adrenaline kept me upright. I dove into my car and slammed the locks before I even closed the door all the way. I jammed the key into the ignition. My hand shook so hard I missed once. I heard him behind me, boots on wood, and then he was on the porch, yelling. He didn't come down into the yard, but he leaned forward like he was thinking about it. He slapped the railing and shouted the nastiest shit, like he wanted to stick it to my skin. I backed out hard anyway, tires scraping curb, and got off that block without looking back. I drove until I hit a busier road and a lit gas station. Then I pulled in and sat there with my heart punching my ribs like it wanted out. My palm was bleeding where the keys cut it, and I didn't even remember it happening. I rinsed it in a bathroom sink with trembling hands and stared at my own face in the mirror, trying to make it look normal so nobody asked questions I couldn't answer without sounding insane. On the drive home, I kept trying to convince myself it was just a gross hoarder house and a pissed-off guy. Nothing supernatural, nothing dramatic. But the thump kept replaying, and the scratches kept replaying, and the way he blocked the exit kept replaying like a training video. I kept thinking about the deadbolt click behind me and how my body noticed it before my brain did. That night, I checked the ad again because I wanted proof I wasn't crazy. It had changed. Same photo. New title. Vintage storage trunk must pick up inside. The curb pickup line was gone. The wording looked cleaner, safer, like he'd learned what got people to step through the door. I scrolled his profile and my stomach dropped again. More posts, same vibe. Free, must go today, inside pickup. People commented like it was nothing, asking if it was still available, asking if they could come that night. Strangers volunteering. I tried to report it, but the report form wanted a clear reason, and all I had was a mess of instincts and one cracked drawer. I started typing a warning to someone in the comments, then froze because I didn't want my name anywhere near his. I kept picturing him opening his door fast again, like he'd been waiting, and I deleted the message. I slept like shit and kept waking up listening for a thump that wasn't there. For days I replayed the layout. How he watched my shoes instead of my face. How the trash bags weren't just trash, they were barriers. How he never reacted to the smell. Not once, like he was used to it or like he expected me to be the one to deal with it. I kept catching myself rubbing my palm where the key teeth cut me. Like the little pain could keep me grounded. A week later, I checked his profile again, against my better judgment, and the posts were still there. Cycling. Cabinet. Trunk. Nightstand. Always inside. Always urgent. Always free. That's when it hit me that the dresser probably wasn't meant to get taken at all. It was a hook. It was a reason to get someone past the threshold and back where nobody could see. And whatever made that sound inside it, whatever smelled like that, was part of the hook too, like bait that needed a fresh set of hands on it. He kept posting. People kept replying. And whatever thumped inside that dresser kept waiting for the next free pickup.